Hi, I'm Scott Mayer. I'm the Director of Instruction here at Nonsuch River Golf Club in Scarborough, Maine. Today I'd like to welcome you to the short game aspect of the Hands-Off Golf video series. Today we're going to be looking at some chip shots, some pitch shots, and some sand shots. We're going to discuss all kinds of different scenarios in each area. Come on, let's go hit some shots and see if we can improve your short game. Today we're going to start with some chipping that's done around the perimeter of the green. And the theory of chipping is minimum carry, maximum roll. Your main goal is to choose a club that gets the ball on the green as soon as possible and allows it to run the rest of the way to the hole. It's always easier to control the ball on the ground than it is to control it in the air, to determine how hard you have to hit it, how far you're going to carry it, whether it's going to spin, whether it's going to roll. It's much easier to land it on the front of the green and let it run to the hole. What I have here is three different clubs. I have a sand wedge, a 9-iron, and a 7-iron. And what we're going to do is we're going to change our clubs according to the shot that we have in front of us. Different clubs are going to give you different carry to roll ratios. Your sand wedge typically is going to produce 75% carry, 25% roll. The 9-iron is going to produce 50 carry, 50 roll, and the 7-iron is typically going to produce 25 carry, 75 roll. So when I have a pin that's located on the front of the green, I'm typically going to use a high lofted club to create more carry and less run so that I can keep the ball on the front of the green. For a pin in the middle of the green, I'm typically going to chip with my 9-iron, which is going to produce 50 carry, 50 roll. And for any time I have pins on the back of the green, I'm typically going to chip more with my 7-iron. One thing that I'll show you a little bit later on in this video is how to determine which club you need to use depending upon the situation that you have. What I have set up here in front of me is what I call a chipping trough. And all I've done is I've taken two clubs, my two longest irons, and I've laid them down to create a trough which is in line with my particular target. I then have another club which I have put on an angle to about 10 o'clock in relationship to the target, which is at 12 o'clock. This is going to be for my stance line. That's going to help me get my stance open. One thing about chipping that you're going to find is that it's really all about the setup. If you get yourself into a good position in your setup, it really lends itself to your ability to hit a good shot. What we're going to do is describe how to set up to this golf ball in relationship to this trough. In regards to the setup, the first thing we want to look at is our stance. And what we're going to do with our stance is we're going to place our feet approximately one club head width apart. We're going to do this to eliminate weight transfer, which leads to movement in the motion. Movement in chipping, as in putting, is your enemy. By putting our feet one club head width apart and placing 90% of our weight on our front or left foot, it's going to allow us to keep our weight there, thus eliminating the need to transfer our weight, which lends itself to the movement. As you get closer and closer to the hole, the issue becomes more one of consistency and accuracy and not achieving power or distance, so we don't need that weight transfer. So feet one club head width apart, weight on the left foot or front foot. We're going to place our ball in relationship to the stance in the back of the stance. We're going to have that right toe pointed directly at the ball. We do this to help create a downward strike on the ball and good solid contact with the golf ball at impact. If I had the ball way back here, the only way I could hit it is by striking down on it. This is going to promote good ball contact. I see a lot of people that get the ball too far forward in their stance, and this forces them to hit it on the upstroke, and they end up topping a lot of balls and running them off the back of the green. So by placing the ball in the back of the stance, it's going to help promote better contact. In relationship to your toes, you want your toes to be parallel with this alignment shaft. So when I say parallel, basically what we're talking about is having each toe equal distance from that shaft. That will ensure that your stance is open. The reason we want our stance open is to get the front hip out of the way. If I was to get into this position where my stance was severely closed, you can see that I'd be running into myself. If I was trying to toss a ball to the hole, I wouldn't stand like this and run into myself. I'd be more inclined to open my body way up where I could make this underhand motion. So by placing my stance slightly open or aimed left of my intended target, it's very easy to make this underhand motion to my target. This, by the way, is a very good drill to do to get a good feel for your chipping, this underhand tossing motion. The same amount of force required to toss a ball to the hole is similar to the amount of force that is required to chip the ball to the hole. When we talk about our grip on the club, one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grip it down at the bottom of the club. What I like to do is I like to pinch the shaft and the grip at the same point every time with my bottom two fingers. What this is going to do is this is going to force me to bend over a lot to get my chest facing the ground and get myself close to my work. By bending over, it allows you to make a nice pendulum motion with your shoulders, which is the engine of our chipping stroke, our shoulders. So holding down at the bottom of the grip also is going to force you to get your eyes directly over the golf ball. A lot of times I find individuals have themselves too far away from the ball, and when you get too far away from the ball, one thing that you'll see is that your club is going to come too much to the inside and too much to the inside, and that's going to make it very difficult to keep your chips on line. It's also going to be difficult to create good downward strike on the ball and good contact with the golf ball. By getting your eyes directly over the golf ball, you can see the line much better, and it's much easier to keep this club head in this trough or going straight down the line towards the target. Next thing we're going to talk about is the shoulder alignment. One thing that you need to be careful of is when you get into this setup that you don't let your shoulders get aligned with your toes so that you're open. You want to make sure that your shoulders are actually square to the trough and pointed at your target line so that when we make this up and down pendulum motion, we get that club moving right down the line towards the target. So in terms of the stance, or the setup, the last thing that we have to talk about is our hand position in relationship to that ball. One thing that's crucial is to get these hands way ahead of that golf ball so that you create a straight line that runs from the left shoulder down the club head or down the shaft to the club head. This straight line will help you create consistency and predictability in your chipping. What we're going to try to do in our stroke is we're going to try to maintain the integrity of this line back with the stroke and through with the stroke. A good thought when you're chipping is that the hands lead and the club head follows. With your stroke, your hands are always in front of that club head. One of the things that we don't want to do is add hands or create this angle here known as a flip. When you flip with your hands, you're going to create a lot of bad contact and a lot of errant shots. So it's imperative that we keep our hands in front of the club head and moving all the way through the shot. This flip that you see here typically occurs when the shoulders, the engine of the stroke, quits their forward motion. When the shoulders quit, the hands will hit. So one of the things that we want to try to really do is make sure that these shoulders stay in motion to the end of the stroke. One thing that you'll see is my club head for a basic chip, my left arm, I think of this in terms of a clock. And what I'm going to be doing here first is a 5 o'clock to a 7 o'clock stroke. My left arm is going to move 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and that's my basic chipping stroke. As you get further away from the hole, the stance will widen out a little bit. The grip will come up a little bit further, the ball position will still remain back, and the stroke may go 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock. 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock will create a little more power and a little longer shot with the same basic technique. So the first shot that I have here is a very close shot where the pin's right on the front of the green. I'm just off the edge of the green, and I still have to chip it because I have long grass here in front of me, and I want to get this ball over that long grass on the front of the green and let it roll the rest of the way to the hole. Occasionally you may be so close that you need to land the ball on the fringe. Now this is fine as long as the fringe is in good smooth conditions where you can get a predictable bounce and roll out of that shot. Anytime possible that you can, you want to try to land that ball on the green because it will create a more predictable shot. Right now I'm just going to hit a couple of shots to this first hole with my sand wedge, which is typically a 75 to 25 carry to roll ratio. Before I hit any shots, actually, it is important to recognize the fact that on close shots with a sand wedge, you may not fully achieve your 75 carry 25 roll because you're not making a big enough stroke to impart enough force on the ball to create the loft that will minimize the run. As I take a fuller swing with my sand wedge, I'm more apt to create more loft and have less roll. On these shorter shots, it may give you a little more roll than you intend, but it still is the best club for this particular shot because it's the most lofted club, which is going to minimize the amount of run that we get. So here's a couple of shots to this first pin with a 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock stroke. One thing that I think is important for you to also acknowledge is how still my body and head stays. I really want to make sure that I've completed my motion before I look for my results. Actually, when you make your stroke, there's three things that are going to happen. You're going to have the stroke itself, you're going to have a turn of the head, and you're going to have a lift of the body. You must learn to do those three things in that order. I find a lot of times people are making their stroke, turning their head and lifting their body all at the same time, and that's going to lead to poor contact and poor shots. So to ensure consistent contact and predictable shots, you must make your stroke first, then you turn your head, then you lift your body. If you work on that sequence, it will really, really help your chipping. Another good thought while you're working on that sequence is to just think about hearing the ball land on the green before you look for the results. I find when you look for your results, what's happening is you're putting the results in front of this task, and this task will break down on you and your results will suffer. Putting the task in front of the results will ensure that you create a proper task or a proper technique, and then the results will take care of itself. So let's hit another one here. Weights on the left, ball is back off the right toe, hands are ahead, shoulders are aligned with the trough, and my toes are aligned with my alignment shaft, and from here I stay still and make a stroke from 5 to 7. We'll do one more of those. And there's a few good chips there next to the hole. Next thing we're going to want to do is take a look at the 9-iron and see how that reacts. Now what I want to do is choose a pin that's more in the middle of the green, so I am going to change my trough so that I'm in line with the pin. From here, I'm going to follow the same process. Get into my setup, 5 to 7, nice and still. One thing that's good about changing your club selection as opposed to staying with the same club is that you can create a similar stroke and get varied results. There are actually two theories in chipping. One is to find one club and marry it and know what you can do with it and hit it for all shots. The other is to alter your clubs. I think you'll find that altering the clubs creates a more versatility in your chipping, and that will lend itself to better success in the long run. So, same setup, same stroke. One more time. Good, and once again, there's 3 balls that are fairly close to the hole and a nice pattern, and that's what we're looking for. The next thing that we'll do is look at a 7-iron. Okay, so I have my trough changed, going at the far pin, and I have my 7-iron now, and I'm just going to make some strokes with my 7-iron, trying to do the same thing. Stance 1 club head width apart, weight on the left, ball back, hands ahead, shoulders in line with the trough. Stay nice and still and focus on good contact, 5 to 7. That one went right in the hole, just like it's supposed to. Let's try that again. There's another good chip. One more time. Good. So there's the same stroke with 3 different clubs to 3 different pins, and what we're going to do next is talk a little bit about the pre-shot routine process and how to go about getting set up to a chip shot so that you can hit it on the right line. What I'd like to talk to you about now is the pre-shot routine process, which I go through prior to hitting a chip, and how to get set up to the ball and what I'm actually thinking when I make a stroke. I always start from behind the ball on my target line, and the first thing that I'm doing is evaluating the situation to figure out what my carry to roll requirements are for this particular shot. Right now I'm going to a pin which is right in front of me and very close to the front edge of the green, so I have my sand wedge. I've already determined that I want to land the ball right on the front edge of the green, and that should work out well in terms of my carry to roll ratio. What I'm going to do next is determine if there's any break on this particular chip, and on this particular one there isn't any, so I can play it pretty straight right at the hole. After I've done that, I'm going to pick an intermediary target, and I happen to have a leaf here in front of me that is perfect. It's directly on the line in regards to where I'm going. If you don't have that leaf, I see many different discolored blades of grass here. I like to try to pick something within 2 or 3 feet of the ball that is within my sight when I'm getting set up to the ball, so that it's easy for me to get my club head aligned properly to my target. So I'm going to use the leaf for this particular example. After I've determined my intermediary target, I have to go about getting myself set up properly. I start from behind the ball like I always do. I'm always going to start with my grip. I got my grip in the rough.